Standing up in McKinney, this is According to Callis, coming to you on March the 8th, the year of our Lord, 2024, and it is a Friday. So as Fridays often go around here, we're here to have a little fun. Now, you might note that yesterday was Thursday, and rather than doing a book review or a movie review, I chose to do a second one on the election results. And I guess, in theory, this would be a third one on the election results, but this is the results of the election game. You may recall on Tuesday, on Election Day, just to put something out, I did an episode called The Election Game, whereupon I guessed the outcome on all the pertinent elections that I was privy to, if you will, and gave a percentage of what the outcome would be in plus or minus based upon how confident I was that I was going to get it right. And suffice it to say, did a little better than 50%. But before I get into it, before I tell you what happened, let me remind you the best way you can continue to help me grow the show, make a difference, and be heard to expand our reach of independent media is to like, share, and subscribe to this podcast. Follow me on the social media of your choice. Remember, I am on Facebook. I have a page and a group. I am now a pro over at Gab, and I still drop in at MeWe. And for the foreseeable future, some of my material will still be on YouTube. Here we go, on with the program. All right, so as I said, the election game was put out on Tuesday. I did not have time to share it or make any big deal, but it is in the podcast itinerary. It is episode 596. I spent the previous 2 days kind of just talking about the results, and I did have a request at the end of yesterday's episode, but today we're going to be lighthearted and fun. It is a Friday. Let's have a little fun, and then I will repeat the request from yesterday. So follow along if you like. Okay, on the game. Here we go. So I couldn't see any world where the Donald didn't get about 93% of the vote, and I did the plus or minus of 4. However, the never Trumper streak continues. I think it has very little to do with Nikki, but more just people don't like the Donald. He only got 77% of the vote there, so I got it wrong. Significantly wrong, but wrong. I did peg Ted Cruz as getting 90% plus or minus 2, and in fact, he got 88% of the vote in the entire state of Texas. So I would call that a big win. Very, very close. All right. Keith Self, running for Congress. I wasn't sure that he could escape a runoff here, but he overperformed. It did magnificent at 72%, and I gladly take the loss on that one. All right. Christy Craddock, I pegged her at 50%, but plus or minus 6. I wasn't really sure one way or the other, but I figured she was good for at least half the vote, and she had a bunch of people in that race with her, and she got 50.4 or 50.4%. So I actually pegged that pretty close, but my confidence level was low. Judge Devine, I said 52% plus or minus 4%, and he eked it out at 50.44%. I got it right. I'm happy about it, but I would have liked it a little bit higher just for our safety's sake. I said Judge Schenck would probably get 59%, but I also said plus or minus 6, and he came in at 62 2/3%. Got it good, but again, my confidence level was low. Gina Parker won at 66%. I only figured her for 56%, but I also went with the plus or minus of 6 because I just wasn't sure. Now in the next race, I actually used Slaughter, and I should have used Finley, but I actually thought Slaughter would get a little bit. I wasn't confident at all in that race. I had no idea how that was going to play out. Slaughter actually got 46% of the vote. I should have went with Finley in 52 plus or minus 4. I would have got it right, or I would have still got it right, but I just couldn't fathom why we would want Lee Finley in as a criminal court of appeals judge. But here we are. All right. Pam Little, I figured her at 42% plus or minus 4. She underperformed, only got 36%. Now, granted, it was a four-way race, and there was two other people that spent a ton of money, so she still got the top slot, but not convincingly so. All right, SD30. Now, I figured Hagen Boo would probably get about 35% of the vote, and I said plus or minus 4. He came in at 36, so I pegged that one well. On Justin Holland, I didn't figure he'd win. I figured he'd get about a third of the vote, but I also went with plus or minus 6 because I just didn't know what was going on in HD33. He came in at 38% of the vote. Took second place, mind you, but I figured he would have. I figured he'd be slightly ahead, but I went with the plus or minus 6 because I just didn't know. Now on 61, HD61, I already admitted here I dropped this one bad. Frederick Fraser came in at 32%. I really figured he'd have about mid-40s. I said 46 plus or minus 6. He underperformed, and I was way off. Now Matt Shaheen, on the other hand, I pegged him at about 60%, but I also did the plus or minus 6. He came in at 64%. So I'm going to count that as a win. Clearly within my scope there. Jeff Leach. I had hoped that he was only going to get 55% of the vote, but I would call my homer was there. And even with my plus or minus 6, because I really had no idea how that was going to play out, he overperformed, got 65%. But I guess money talks. Okay. I got that way wrong. Okay. Kennard. Now, Kennard, I had no idea in this race for HD 70. He way overperformed, but I think it was more that Joe just didn't campaign. 68% of the vote, so I got that way off. Now, Candy Noble. This is the one I was feeling a little bit better about in the sense that I figured she'd get 53% of the vote, but I also wasn't sure, not confident at all, and I went with plus or minus 6. And in fact, she slightly underperformed and got a little over 52%. So I got it right, but boy, here my chinny chin chin. 401st, I predicted Lassiter would be number 1 at 44% with plus or minus 6. She came in at 46%. So again, I got a win there. Sheriff Skinner, I figured would be at 88% plus or minus 4. He got 86%. So I got that pretty much spot on. Scott Griggs. Now, I did not see that he was going to win without a runoff there. But I was feeling he was going to be the top vote getter. So I put him at 45% of the vote, plus or minus 6, because there was a whole lot of swing there. And he overperformed. He got 55% of the vote. Kudos to him. Which is interesting, because Daryl Hale, I figured, would curb stomp Garrison, who was in the race, then wasn't in the race. Then he was in the race, and then he, well, I don't know, some organization named Bluebonnet, who likes to make stuff up and put out trash. Didn't talk about how great their candidate is, but basically made stuff up about Daryl. But Daryl did slightly better than Scott Gregg, but still didn't do nearly as good as I thought he would, which is really disappointing and strange all at the same time. Came in at 56%, and I had him at 75%, so I blew that one bad. Matt Carpenter. What was interesting here is he had darn near 80% of the early vote, but he tumbled down due to a misstep, in my opinion, over the weekend. But even still, he came in at 76% of the vote, which was a major win, and I had him pegged at 75% plus or minus 4 from the get-go. So I was pretty darn close there, but nevertheless. All right, now the Rumsfeld-Asher race. I put it at 50-50. It could have gone either way, plus or minus 6. And to my surprise, Mike Rumsfeld got 40% of the vote. And Mr. Asher got 60% of the vote. So I wasn't really close there. I was really surprised at that outcome. I guess maybe even more surprised than Daryl getting such a low win there. I really figured Daryl Hale would be doing better. I figured that would be much closer. So, look, even being super involved in my own county, I totally blew both of those. And last but not least, and again, probably the most important election in the Republican Party this cycle. Shelby Williams, I put him at 45% plus or minus 6. I was really hoping he could avoid the runoff. He just missed it. 49.66% of the vote. We're talking 217 votes, and he would have got a win right off the bat. But to my credit, I had it at 45% plus or minus 6 because the confidence level was low, and I was in there. I got it within 4 points. So if you've been following along, I had 13 wins. In other words, I got the guess within the confidence level, but 10 losses. So realistically, I was batting slightly better than 500. Not great. But again, as I said, most of this was swag. I don't pay attention to polls. I don't do research on this stuff. Now, there were a couple races I was a little bit more involved in. Put in a little more effort trying to figure out what was the likely outcome. Those were the ones I had a little more confidence in. But I got to tell you, the Trump election was really weird. He actually did better statewide than he did in Collin County. I can't figure that out. In Ted Cruz, again, did better in Collin County than he did statewide. I think. Yeah, I think that's right. And again, Keith Self way overperformed. So look, I really loused some of these up. But again, it was a game. It was for fun. I did them right off the top of my head on Tuesday before Election Day was done. And the purpose of this is one, to just show that even when you think you know, you don't know. Two, to have a little fun, lighten up things. It was going to give me some material for Friday because look, it's been a rough week. There are a lot of people that are disappointed. They're hurt. They need some time to recover. I would probably include myself in that. There are some races that were significant disappointments. There are other ones that were pleasant surprises, and it's a mixed bag. Every election cycle is a mixed bag. But going forward, we have to focus on November. We have to think about November. But before we get there, we have a Senate District Convention coming up. Basically, this Saturday is the Precinct Convention. Wherever you are in the state of Texas, I don't know what you're doing in your district, but in SD8 in Collin County, we're doing the Precinct Convention this Saturday. If you voted in the Republican primary, and if you would like to participate, show up to the McKinney campus of Collin College, 9 o'clock in the morning, get yourself registered, come and join us. This is your opportunity to put forth any resolutions or any platform changes that you would like to see. We have a digital version that's going to be available. There's going to be a QR code for you to scan that we want you to use for the purposes of doing that. You will also get an opportunity to sign up to join us as a delegate at the Senate District Convention. This is your opportunity to be involved and be heard. Every other year, the Republican Party comes together and we talk about these things and we talk about what can we do for better, to make the party better, to make the state better. So come and join us. In addition to that, in 2 weeks, which I believe is the 22nd, right? It's the 9th. Yeah, Saturday the 9th is the Precinct Convention, and the 23rd, March the 23rd, in Plano, we're going to have the Senate District Convention. It also is going to start, well, I recommend you get there at 9 o'clock. Get there around 9 o'clock, sign in, get your stuff done, and come and join us. We're going to talk about who is going to go to the state level convention. We're going to hear some rah-rah stuff, of course. We're going to talk about the rules. We're going to talk about platform. We're going to also talk about legislative priorities, the things that we want the state legislature to take up this next term, that we find are most important. The platform is what the party believes, and we look to tell the world, the state of Texas, this is what the Republican Party of Texas believes. And then The legislative priorities are to say, these are the things that are most important we want you to take action on. To that end, I have two things that I would like for you to consider supporting when we get to the Senate District Convention for legislative priorities. One is a Texas sovereignty law, which would basically state that we, the state of Texas, are going to enforce all the laws that are constitutional that we pass at the state level and that you pass at the federal level. But when you pass unconstitutional laws at the federal level, or we disagree with them as the state of Texas, we're not going to help you enforce them. Feel free to come in and try and enforce them yourself, but we, the state of Texas, we're sitting out. It's almost a form of nullification, but it's perfectly legit. It's already happening in other states. The second one is protect the Guard. We're going to make sure that the Guard doesn't go overseas unless there's a legitimate declared war. We're going to protect our Guard members that sign up to serve Texas, that they will focus on Texas things. These are two very important things that we can make legislative priorities, that we could encourage our state legislature to do the right thing and make Texas first. With that, I'm going to wrap it up. It is a Friday. Go enjoy your weekend. Spend time with your family, your friends. Hope to see you at the Precinct Chair Convention on Saturday, or perhaps in 2 weeks at the Senate District Convention. We have lots of work to do. Let's get it done. And with that, this has been According to Callus, and I will see you on the other side.